Welcome to another episode of Fave 5 for Fans, the podcast where we explore all things favorite. I'm your ever enthusiastic, thrilling host, Jamie Ray, and today we are joined by Jon McCarthy. McCarthy? McCarthy.
That's it.
Who we are going to discuss a topic that he brought to me. And as you know, if you've been watching the show, I love when people come with their own topics because that generally means they know and love what they're talking about. So today we are going to talk about thrillers. And to do that is the man right there. Look at it.
Yeah, gotta do that.
Jon, welcome to the Plastic Microphone Studios.
Thanks, Jamie. Thank you for having me, man. I'm excited to be here. Finally got
thrilled.
It is a thriller.
So we met at, I think, a GalaxyCon or Fan Expo.
It might have been
a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then we started talking about this, and I bought a couple of your comics, which you're going to talk about in the break, and just kind of came to you with this, and you said you wanted to do thrillers, which I was super excited about.
Yeah.
But before we jump into it, why thrillers, and what exactly is a thriller / horror film to you?
Man, that's a great question. I've been actually thinking about that a lot. I recently started at the end of August. I started up a TikTok page that's now, since I added an Instagram to it, called the Horror Miner, where I go on and just kind of do reviews on horror films. And to me, I've always kind of tried to pin down like where's the line, like, to me, I can kind of consider thrillers. The more I've thought about it, I think a thriller is just a subgenre of horror,
Okay.
But fine, it's like, where does that end? Where does it go strictly more towards the drama thriller versus the horror thriller? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I know the answer to it, but that's kind of the best I've come up with. It's a subgenre of horror, in my opinion, that I really like a lot. There's some really great stuff, really great stories told in that.
Well, and I kind of thought along the same lines. If you're a fan of the show or you're of Norwegian descent, you know that I love horror films. So when you came to me and brought this up, my first thought was, oh man, what is a thriller that's not a horror movie? Because most of the horror movies I love are probably going to be thrillers. So what I decided to do from my list was to really kind of walk that edge where a thriller has more to do with like the psychological stuff going on,
Yeah.
not necessarily, but in one case, that there's no outside mystical things. There's also not really slashers because there's not a lot of, jump scares. Jump scares are great, but they hold a different place in horror films.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be interested to see how our lists come out. So,
I mean, it's so broad, this wasn't on my list, but it was a movie that I love that I feel like is a thriller, but not so much the horror as No Country for Old Men.
yeah.
Fantastic movie that's very thrilling in places, but not horror-ish thriller. You know what I'm saying? So it's weird. It's kind of a weird way you pick it. So yeah, it's such a broad scope that I'm also interested to see how our list coincide. I think they might step a toe or two across the horror line here and there, but
there ain't nothing wrong with that.
Listen, whoever's watching this, weigh in with your comments and kind of. I love hearing people's definition of it. Like, where is horror and thriller separate things, or are they a subgenre of a main underneath a main umbrella or whatever? I just love hearing people's thoughts on it because I don't know if it's ever been clearly defined, but it's an interesting thing to discuss.
Yeah, and does it need to be defined too? That's the other thing. If it's just a good movie and it heightens you. For example, one of the movies that's not on here is for me, The Marathon Man. Yeah. And it's not a horror movie at all, but it could keep you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
And so me too. I'm going to be very interested. So I think if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's do it. So before we started, I asked if you have your list of 5, but if you had any honorable mentions. And do you have some?
I do. Yes.
Okay. It's less than 12, right?
Yes.
Okay.
set aside 2 honorable mentions.
Yes, a rule follower on the first go.
2. I had to draw the line at some place, and I chose 2. So.
That is awesome. Well, if you're a first time watcher, listener, or I don't know if you read the transcripts instead, an honorable mention is something that you just couldn't quite get into that list of 5, or it was something that maybe isn't even one of your favorites, but you had to somehow bring it up. And so I think I'm really super ready. Why don't you give me both of your honorable mentions?
All right, my first honorable mention is a film that I really like a lot. I think this one would qualify as a thriller, and it's Quentin Tarantino's last film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh,
The thrill part of that to me, I'm assuming most people have seen that film. And there's 2 parts of that movie where I really feel like solidified into thriller world, and that's where Brad Pitt's character goes out to the Spawn Ranch, and he's going to see his old buddy out there. Baby girl or whatever her name is he picks her up hitchhiking, and they go out there.
right.
That's a scene where he's going into that house. It felt to me like I was watching a segment of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
Right, Leatherface comes out. It was very, very riveting and very tense, thrilling scene to me. And naturally, the end scene where the family shows up, especially the first time you see that film and you don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
It's very telling, because I think that movie does such a great job, at least in my opinion, of really, really making me invested in both Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio's characters. Right. To the point where you don't want to see anything bad happen to them, Mm-hmm. And so when that finale comes up and it's high stakes stuff happening there, man, I loved it. So that's first honorable mention.
That's a great one. I have to tell you, I love that choice because throughout that movie, you're like, the events of this that's happening, and then stuff starts to kind of go off on your own, and now you're like, wait a minute, is this the story I know, or is it something else? And as we find out, is something else. And I mean, I'll never look like a can of peas the same way again,
No, right? And I'll tell you another thing. I had this conversation with my oldest son the other day. That movie to me solidified my opinion that Leonardo DiCaprio might be the greatest male actor of all time. That the scene in there where he's playing an actor who's, where he's shooting that scene with that little girl where he's in doing the scene and he's the bad guy. And then he goes back to his trailer and he's talking to himself in the mirror and he says, if you don't get this right, you're going to die tonight, basically.
Yeah.
And then he goes back and does that scene. It was such a meta thing where he's an actor playing an actor who's struggling. That scene to me, and I used to be an actor. I was not a very good one, but I did carry a SAG card for a couple of years, whatever that's worth. That to me is the greatest piece of acting I think I've ever seen in a movie. I mean,
really?
It is fantastic. Yeah, if you go back and really study that, I mean, it was so, so good. So I love that movie for those reasons. But yeah, to me, that's my first honorable mention thriller.
Okay, you're doing well so far, sir. Go ahead and give us your other one.
The other one is a movie that I discovered recently. It's a 2025 film that I talked about on my TikTok page. It's called The Surrender. This one kind of goes toe over into the horror world. Okay. But there's this thing I learned. It's called a paranormal procedural. Apparently, that's a sub genre of horror.
Okay.
The most popular, probably recent example is a movie they did. It was an Australian film called Bring Her Back. That one came out this year. A lot of people talk about it and love it. And the whole thing of these paranormal procedurals is usually someone dies and the characters are going to take certain steps to try to bring them back. And that's what The Surrender is about. And it stars, I can't remember the actress's name, but she's on The Boys. She plays the character Ashley on The Boys. She's great in that. And then the actress that plays her mother was in Big Trouble in Little China, also one of my all-time favorite movies. She played Margot, the reporter, friend, green-eyed girl. Yeah, so she's in this. But the plot of it is basically the father passes away, and then they go through these steps to try to reverse that, and they hire this dude who apparently knows how to do this. And it just, man, it's probably definitely heavier towards the horror side, but it's a movie. It's in one top 5.
Does it not go well?
It doesn't go, no, it does not go well as paranormal procedurals are known to do, but it's so well done to me. I loved it. Again, it's in uh, definitely top 5 horror movies of 2025, but thriller horror. It's it's probably more horror than thriller, but it's a really good film. So I'm bringing it up here just in case folks didn't see it. Highly recommend you check that one out. It's very thrilling. I can tell you that much.
All right. Well, I do have to bring up a procedural issue
All right.
because you just used the dreaded T word that
Oh,
we don't use on the show.
oh.
But as a newbie, you get the first one free.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, I don't drop that.
After that,
All right.
it's a quarter every
Quarter,
time.
quarter pop. See, I was thinking about this before the show, and I was like, I don't ever use that word. I doubt I'll ever use that in here. I don't even realize I used it there. But all right, I'm going to be
Now
more.
it's in your head. I'm going to upgrade to leather seats after this episode.
Oh, so what about yourself? Let me hear some of your honorable mentions.
Well, thank you very much. So I do have 2 honorable mentions. The first is from 2022, and it is called The Menu.
Oh,
And it is you know it?
yes,
Okay.
love it.
So it is a darkly comedic thriller about, and you say they're a young couple, but into the movie you realize they're not really a couple. It's a guy who brought along a girl, a date, and she goes into this world of the super rich, super exclusive people for a restaurant, and you find out that all things are not what they seemed. Now, what makes it a great thriller? It's got claustrophobic tension. They're all on an island with no way to get out. It's got class warfare subtexts because you've got a lot of people who are super rich, and then you have Anna Taylor-Joy's character, and then you have the people who work in the restaurant cooking
That
them.
was the
So
one
it
with
literally is war. There's a psychological, that cat and mouse thing that goes throughout it. Ralph Fiennes,
yeah.
he is just magnetic as that like unhinged chef who the meals are more important than the people.
Yep.
And you put all of this, and then you've got Anne Joy in there, and Anya Joy, and all she wants is a good cheeseburger. And I'm there, girl. I'm with you. I just want a good cheeseburger. But it's a kind of thriller that it keeps you guessing, trying all the way through it. And I don't usually spoil endings, but the ending where she gets her burger and it's chef's kiss, not a psychotic chef, but chef's kiss.
That's a good film, man. I think that one did really well because it came out right. If I feel like the timing was there. I don't know if you've seen the show The Bear on FX.
I know of it because my wife has watched it.
It won. I think it won this year. I think it won like every Emmy available. It felt like. I mean, it's a fantastic show. It's really good, and I love that choice because my oldest son, who I mentioned earlier, he actually works at a fine dining restaurant here in New Orleans. So he
Oh, really?
primary source of employment is in that world. So I've through him, osmotically, I've gotten to absorb kind of what it's like and that obsession, like you're talking about, like Ray Fiennes' character and things. I don't think that's terribly far off on some of the
Really?
that those high level chefs have like that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
good choice.
again, that's a great. I would love to get into that. I just haven't watched it. I have too many things to watch, but I hear it's great. I've watched parts, if that counts.
Yeah.
So,
Great choice. Great selection.
well, my second selection is back from 1943. And if you talk about thrillers, you cannot miss talking about Alfred Hitchcock. And the movie that I want to talk about is called Shadow of a Doubt. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this one, but it all circles around this young girl named Charlie Newton. She lives in a small town outside of Santa Rosa, California, and her beloved Uncle Charlie is coming to visit. But along the way, she starts to see things and thinks that maybe Uncle Charlie is the Merry Widow murderer, a serial killer who's been going around preying on wealthy widows. Okay, what makes it a great thriller? What makes it a great thriller? The psychological depth to this movie is almost endless. I mean, you have a young girl who, by and large, especially in that day and age, people don't really see kids. They're supposed to be outside playing.
Right.
You've got the possibility of the evil next door, or in this case, under your own roof. Things start to go in a way that she's like, well, that's just got to be a coincidence, or that must not be what I think it is. And Uncle Charlie's played by Joseph Cotton, and his performance is just chillingly charismatic because not only does he come across some women in there who would make her think, but also to the way he talks to Charlie. And you kind of wonder if, up until things start to happen, how much does he really love her, or is it all just a play? You've got the moral complexity because if she destroys her family by telling the police who Uncle Charlie really is, then what's going to happen? But if she doesn't, then she's complicit in possibly the other murders. It's a really, really great movie. Again, it's in black and white. A lot of people try to avoid these, but I think that there are some amazing movies out there. And Hitchcock actually called this his favorite film that he directed. So if you want a masterclass in dread without spectacle, with no jump scares, this is a movie you need to check out.
I haven't seen that one, but I'm going to go back and definitely watch that one. Now, I recently watched. Was it the Robert Meacham one, where the woman loses her husband and he comes in and steps in? Is it Night of the Hunter? Is that what it is?
Yeah, Night of the Hunter, where he's got the on this. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's another great example of that.
Oh,
really
so
good
much
black and white film.
The sets of that movie are purposely two-dimensional almost, because it kind of puts you like that time when he's walking up the hill and the fence is there and he's going toward the house. It's like, that doesn't even look like a real place, but you know it's an artistic choice to kind of pull you out of what you're used to feeling, and now you're not quite sure. That's an excellent choice, sir. Oh,
Yeah.
he's so good in that.
Did that on my honorable mentions. In hindsight, I had honestly didn't even think about it until you started talking about Hitchcock, and it kind of was like, oh yeah, there are such. I think you're right. I think a lot of people sleep on those old ones, but you're doing yourself a disservice if you're a fan of thrillers or horror films. I think if you don't go back, and especially Alfred Hitchcock, he's basically the pioneer of all of this stuff.
He's the master. He really is.
Actually, that one of his though, I'll correct that. I want to watch this.
There you go. That's what we're all about. All right. Well, now that we've honorably talked about our honorable mentions, I am ready. We've got that out of the way. What is your fifth favorite thriller / horror? Not slash horror like slashing a person, but anyway, you go ahead.
I think you were right, and this is one that again, of my remaining 5, this one probably similarly kind of puts a toe or two over the line towards horror, but it is very thrilling, and it's a film that I watched recently, and it's called, the name of it's Oddity. It's an Irish film. Seen it?
When you were talking about them trying to bring somebody back from the dead, the Oddity is the first movie that popped into my mind. It was one of my 5 favorite 2024 movies.
I'm telling you, I watched it probably for the first time, probably 3 months or so ago. It was actually one of the reasons why I wanted to start doing these discussions about these movies on TikTok and stuff. I rewatched it because I watched it first time and I was like, that was fantastic. And I went back and rewatched it a couple of weeks later just to see if it still held up, and it does. And it actually has cemented itself pretty firmly in my top 20 of all time. I love that movie. Is really, really, it's almost perfect to me the way it goes. Damn it. I did quarter up. It is one of my favorite films, probably of the past decade or so. I mean, really,
strong words.
Just the way the entire way that it unfolded. The director, his last name is McCarthy, so you know it's going to be awesome. Damien McCarthy is his name. He and I actually have corresponded back and forth a little bit on Instagram. He's got a new one coming out soon called Hokum. But Oddity is a movie that I have been almost radicalized to talk about because so much. So anytime I talk to anyone and they're even remotely interested in thrillers, horror, I'm like, watch Oddity. So that one's got to go for my number 5 slot.
Oh,
of that. Yeah.
Bravo. There's so many scenes in that film when the guy comes to the door and she opens the and he's talking to her. It's like, is this real? Is
Yeah.
yeah, with the eye. Oh yeah, with the eye. But you know, one of the things aside from the hole in the second floor, I don't get it's the part where she's in the tent in the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Oh
That's
man.
a full horror movie there.
God, that is so good.
And
Excellent choice.
the actress that plays the sister, it's the same actress. She plays both
Yeah.
parts. And
Yes.
one of them is a blind woman. And, you know, Michael B. Jordan did a fantastic job of that in Sinners, playing both
Hmm.
those people. I think she did a better job, honestly, as far as one actor playing two characters. I mean, it was an incredible performance. So
Yeah.
yeah, Oddity comes in at number 5 for me. What you got, Jamie? What you got?
Okay, so I kind of break my own rule because a lot of times when I talk about movies like this, I don't like to talk about the same director,
Okay,
but I'm going to anyway because it's my show.
I'll call it.
So we're going to jump from 1940s to the 1963 with the Alfred Hitchcock masterpiece, The Birds.
I was hoping you'd say
Okay, this movie is so just primal in it. One of the first things that I tell people is after they see this movie, what do you think of the soundtrack? And then people will go, "Oh yeah, it was." Uh, and that's when you realize there is no music, there is no soundtrack in this movie.
yeah,
All of the stuff you hear is the sounds of the birds, the sounds of the life around you. Um, if you're not sure about this movie, it basically follows a socialite named Melanie Daniels, played by Tippi Hedren, when she visits Bodega Bay and becomes trapped along with the other residents during an unforeseen, unexplainable, violent bird attack. Now, what makes it a great thriller? Like I said, primal fear. Everywhere you go, you see birds. They're just such a part of us. And then when you step back and you start to think about it, how greatly we're outnumbered by our foul friends.
yeah,
The mounting dread of this movie, okay? It's like from the very first time that she gets a goal hitting her, you're like, okay, that didn't quite right. Till the very end of the movie where there's fires and dead people and explosions and all of this stuff. It's like, how did you get here?
yeah,
Okay. And again, the sound design, you know, it just you you're so immersed in what's happening, you're not even realizing that there's no music. And as you and I both know, sound plays an important part in horrors and in thrillers, but it so does music. And so his choice to not have it in there, the way that it played off, excellent.
yeah. I think I was actually going to say like that. That in and of itself really shows how much of a masterpiece that film is, because you're right, horror does rely so heavily on background and stingers and things like that, that all comes from the musical side of that. So to create the tension that the birds does without that extra component, it's literally like tying a hand behind his back and still delivering a home run. I mean, it's a
Right.
fantastic, great
Ah,
film.
that's an American sports ball reference. I
It
got
is,
that.
it is, yes.
But you know, the cherry on the top of this movie is that there's no resolution, no explanation,
Yeah,
and uncertain about, did it just happen here? Is it just around us or was it everywhere?
yeah,
And that just really fuels that nightmare to
yeah.
making us stop and think every time we see a couple of crows together, a murder of crows, one might say. And are they going to go off on us? So
Yeah.
that's going to be my number 5, The Birds.
Awesome. Hitch
But
man,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it,
you like
it, I do. That's a great choice.
thank you. And you know, music plays a very important part, like you just said, and we're going to talk about that later on in another one of my choices. But for right now, I want to hear what your number 4 is.
All right, number 4, I'm going to have to go with a classic. This one is on a lot. I would imagine might be number 1 on a lot of people's list. I'm going to throw it at number 4, and that is the fantastically superb, wonderful Jonathan Demme's Silence of the Lambs, 1993. I think that came out. I
I think
actually got
it's
lucky.
two.
92. Yeah, I was in the
No,
service.
91.
90.
91.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know I was in the service when I had, and that was from 90 to 95. So I knew it was in that span of time. But I actually got fortunate and got to actually meet Jonathan Demme.
Oh,
He did a
wow.
he did a documentary before he passed away. Obviously, he did a documentary on Haiti. He was really
Okay.
big into that, and I went to a screening of it at Florida State University. Watched it, listened to him talk, and actually brought my Silence of the Lambs DVD with me. And he was kind enough at the end of it to sign it to Jonathan from Jonathan. So that was
That's
pretty awesome.
awesome.
But yeah,
Wow.
that movie, man, that might be the dictionary listing for thriller. It has to be high up on most people's lists, I think. And I'm assuming everyone watching your show has probably seen that film.
All
It
7
is,
of them, yes.
yeah, it is a great film. The ending scene of that, where she stumbles into that house, the way that was shot, where the FBI is about to enter a house, and then they're like, "Oh, we're not at the right place," and then
Yeah.
James Gumb opens the door, and you're like, "Uh-oh."
Oh, crap.
and, and it's fantastic, and the Hannibal Lecter stuff in there was done so well. Um, Man, you go back and watch it, and it's kind of a slow burn. It's not a lot of, like, bam 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 action
Right.
that you would, a lot of stuff. It's just really good character development set up. I mean, the Jonathan Harris book that it's based off of. I actually, in the literature side, I like Red Dragon better than Silence of
Yeah.
the Lambs as far as the books. But the Michael Mann version of Red Dragon was done well. But the Silence of the Lambs, I mean, that has to be on anyone. I feel like most people's list would probably have that film, unless they were fully saying it's a horror film. But
Yeah.
that's a great movie. I love that film.
That's an excellent, excellent pick. I do love it. There's so many things about that movie. It actually feels it sometimes that it's two different movies,
Yeah.
and then you wait for them to converge, and then you're like, "Holy crap, where am I?"
Yeah.
No, I like that. Excellent, excellent pick, and the fact that you got to meet him,
It was
I'm
cool.
jealous.
He was
Yeah.
very, very kind guy. I was very sad whenever he passed away, but man, he did some great stuff. He was an incredible director.
Well, I mean, not to throw it around, but I stood on a Burbank street corner next to Joe Morton and said hello to him.
Hey, man.
So I got that going for me.
Did he say hello back?
He did. I said, "Good evening, Mr. Morse. How are you?" He said, "I'm doing good." That's it. I mean, what a great story.
Oh man, that was a great one. Yeah, that was a great one. So what you got for number 4? Let's hear it.
Well, my number 4 is it's odd because it's actually number 7.
Okay.
Because I am talking about the 1995 David Fincher movie with Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt. You want to talk about what a thriller slash horror movie is. That's what this movie does. Um, there are monsters, there are demons, there are otherworldly people, but when you find out that the things that do the worst damage to us are humans, and that's exactly what this film has done. If you know anything about it, it's about these two. Like, so you got two detectives, the seasoned veteran who's played by Morgan Freeman, and then the new guy who's go out to make. They're tracking what they think are serial killers who are murdering their victims based on the 7 deadly sins. And along the way, in this perpetually rain-soaked, unnamed city, they start to find out that it is one killer, and that they're racing to figure out who he is and how to catch him. Why is it a great thriller? Okay, I could do the rest of the show on why this movie is a great thriller, but there's a few things of it. First of all, dread through the entire film. You just go into the depths of some of the worst places in the world. You look at someone who has been fed food until they ruptured. You look at someone who's so vain. I can't even describe it. If you haven't seen it and you have a good stomach, you should watch this movie. The moral decay and the hopelessness that just washes over these two people who are our eyes into this world just makes you think, where are the good people left? how can the world have come to this? And like we talked about a little bit earlier, the pacing of this movie is just metronome setting brilliance, because you start to think, well, what the heck happened here? And then, Somerset, he knows something's not right. And that's when, because he's the thoughtful intellectual, and he's like, wait a minute, and he starts to put it together. um there's other things about this movie. The killer, of course, who ends up, being Kevin Spacey. um it's not all random. It is a statement that he's making, but then you find out who is he making it to, and some of that stuff comes a little too close to home. um but the thing that makes this movie above all of that out is the end.
Yeah.
It is shocking. You do not see it coming, and it is so incredibly subversive. The good guys are supposed to win.
Yeah.
The good guys are supposed to stop the bad guys. And in that last couple of minutes, out in that field underneath those high tension wires, the line between who's the bad guy and who's the good guy blurs. And it brings up so many questions about morality, justice, and who actually won. Did John Doe win because he got what he needed, or did justice win because he was killed? And that's up to each of us.
Yeah.
So, love that film. What do you think? I know you've seen that movie.
Oh, not only have I seen it, but you said we could talk all night about it. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about it because it happens to be my number 3 film.
Oh, we have a match.
I won't show you my bottoms, but yeah, it's right there. That it's one of my. I won't use the T word.
No, please do. Please do.
It's
Go
my
ahead.
20 favorite horror films of all time. I saw that in the theater. I remember it to this.
Same.
Someone made a comment on one of the movies I reviewed on the TikTok account, and he said, "Oh, I saw this movie, but I don't remember it." And I said,
"You didn't see it."
Yeah, I said the funny thing about that is when you watch a lot of movies, like obviously you and I both do, you can blur through them. You're like, yeah, I know I saw this, but I really don't recall it. Then there are films that lock into the permanent memory banks. Seven is one of those. It's to me, I know exactly where I saw it the first time. I'm originally from Tallahassee, Florida. So my family had rented a beach house over in Destin, Florida, and we were all going over there. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, I decided to go off on my own one day, and I was like, I'm going to go to the movie by myself, out of town, and that was the film that I went to see. And I saw that in the movie theater by myself. There wasn't that many people, and it was the middle of the day, and I was riveted is an understatement. I left that theater. That's one of the best films I've ever seen in my life. The scene where Mills first encounters John Doe, and he chases him, and he goes outside in the rain, and John Doe gets the drop on him. That scene is, you talk about thrillers, tense and just, man, captivating. And then there's so many. I've watched that film so many times, and I've went on so many deep dives on it. There's so many. I mean, David Fincher, first of all, his films could be my entire list here. I mean, I love every movie that guy makes.
Yeah.
Director. But there's so many small nuanced things in that film. Like in the very beginning, when Mills and Somerset they first meet, they're walking down the sidewalk, it's raining. If you pay close attention, as Somerset is walking, he's walking up the sidewalk and no one touches him. But Mills is bumping into everybody that's walking past him. And it's symbolic. And the way the conversation goes, Mills is in the front, and then Somerset goes to the front in different paces of as the conversation's unfolding about what they're talking about. So little small nuanced things like that. And you're right, the screenplay, and I'll talk about this a little bit more. Then I'm gonna throw another one in for my number 3.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, the screenplay of this was fantastic. Love Seven, all time easily. It's probably top. It's probably in my 10 favorite
Oh, okay.
of all time. I mean, I love this movie a lot. So to do real quickly to substitute a number three, I got this one popped into my head. I guarantee it's not on your list. It wouldn't be on many people's lists, I don't think, who think of thrillers. But in my personal opinion, this is the greatest screenplay ever written, in my opinion, and that is the late '90s um, Western Unforgiven with
Oh, yeah. With
Eastwood,
Clint Eastwood.
Morgan Freeman, Gene Hackman. I do believe that could definitely qualify as a thriller film. Yeah,
I could see that. And
yeah,
it is a thrilling film for sure.
it is thrilling for sure, and it's just it like Seven. It's just so the way it's set up throughout the movie to the final, the first act to the final third act, the way the seeds are planted, the way they produce at the end for such magnificent payoff. Again with Seven, it's the same type of a thing. You go back and you have this seven deadly sins killer that leads to eventually the final sin being enacted as he's planned the whole time. And then with Unforgiven, the lore is set so good with Clint Eastwood's character, how he's reformed, but it's told that before he was reformed, he was a bad dude,
Yeah.
times. And
Wow.
I watch it a lot,
Yeah.
just because when I'm writing, and if I really want to kind of tap into something and be like, hey, aim for the stars, I go back and put that movie on and just say, I'll never be able to write anything this good,
Mhm.
but it's something that I aspire towards. So to me, it's besides just a movie, it's an inspiration piece now. But
Wow.
I know it's kind of a stretch to call that a thriller, but Seven is my actual number three. But I'm gonna
Okay.
go down with I'll throw this one in as a pseudo honorable mention at the number three slot since we overlap with Seven.
I'm going to allow it,
Uh,
though.
thank you.
Matches are fine. Matches
Let's
are
hear
fine.
your number three. I'm kind of curious now that we hooked up on Seven. I'm really curious. I don't think we're gonna have the last two are gonna meet, but
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. But my number three, and this doesn't happen very often, but my number three is a remake or a reboot of a movie from the 40s. Maybe it was the late 30s. I'm talking about the 2020 version of The Invisible Man.
oh, okay.
Okay. And it's like a modern psychological thriller that gets viewed through the lens of domestic abuse, gaslighting, the dangers of technology, um, invisibility, not just a personal, not being able to see someone, but living in a world where you're not seen. Um, all of these things just culminate into just such a ride. So if you haven't seen it, you have though.
I haven't actually.
Really?
that was one that I succumbed to assumptions and felt like they got me with that Benicio del Toro Wolfman remake that I did
Yeah.
not.
I
And
I can understand that.
I felt like this for whatever reason. It was guilt by association that I felt this was going to be another one of the Universal monsters
Yeah.
that was done,
Yeah.
and I'm like, he was a Universal monster, right?
It was. Yeah, it was.
And
Um
I skipped it. It's funny you mentioned it because I asked my wife about it the other day. I saw it come across on one of the streaming platforms. I was like, "Did you see that?" I was like, "I didn't see it." I was like, "Is it stupid?" She goes, "I don't think I watched it." So I'm going to watch it now. I'm glad to hear
it
that.
will. Okay. That's going to temper what I'm going to tell you about,
Oh,
okay? But basically the film follows Cecilia, who's played by Elizabeth Moss, who at the beginning of the movie escapes from her abusive, controlling tech mogul boyfriend. Afterwards, he supposedly commits suicide. But then she starts to suspect that he's actually not dead, but he's found a way to become invisible and is terrorizing her. Okay? So in the land of us, we're like, how do come on, he can't be invisible. But you now put in the technology aspect of it. And you think about the things where they can put these screens on tanks and basically make them invisible.
right.
It kind of becomes, what if that gets miniaturized? Um, what makes this a thriller? So, first of all, the increasing disturbing incidents that take place. that only happen when they're around her. Is she crazy? Is she seeing these things? Is she doing these things and doesn't realize it? Um, the film really excels in transforming this. We've seen stalker films. Everybody knows a stalker film. That's thrilling. But what about when your stalker no one can see?
Yeah.
And it's again looking through the lens of that trauma and the control. It's the whole movie has you looking at every empty corner, every blank space, wondering if something is going to happen in the background. And Elizabeth Moss. Now, this was, before the Handmaid's Tales stuff came out. She delivers an incredible powerhouse performance. She makes you feel her terror. There's a scene that I'm not going to go into now that happens in a restaurant that I saw it in the movie theaters. I did not realize really what happened until I left later, read it on the internet, and then when I bought the Blu-ray, watched it again, and I'm like, okay, it's really, really good. And personally, I think the combination of the smart cinematography that the director Lee Wanell, I think is his name, Wanell,
Yeah.
what he brings in, the people he brings in, and just the straight up brutal violence that you only see half of, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just a genuine suspenseful thriller throughout. And I think it had an incredible ending that would have played wonderfully in the Dark Universe series. Maybe with the Frankenstein movie. Maybe. We'll see.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I'll check that out. Now, wasn't there I'm almost positive in the early 90s there was a thriller that Kevin Bacon was in.
Hollow Man.
Hollow Man, where he was kind of like, okay, that's what it was. That's what I was.
And this one, and I know, if you're a fan of the original Universal, the whole the whole issue behind those invisible men are they inject themselves with something,
right,
and it causes them to go nuts, okay, to lose their mind over the course. It breaks down the right and wrong issues that govern us. This movie, the guy who's invisible already has those issues.
nice.
And he just ends up getting the invisibility to make him an even worse guy. So he's more of a villain than the ones in the other Universal films, because this is a conscious decision to use this power in a horrendous way. But I definitely would tell you to watch it.
Do they pay homage to the original with the bandages and the sunglasses?
No, they don't.
Iconic look of that character.
It so is.
Yeah.
And you got that in Hollow Man.
Yeah, Hollow Man. Remember.
Yeah. The greatest thing about, for me, for some horror is it's almost ready to happen.
Yeah.
So when you watch this movie and you see the technology that he uses to make him invisible, you go, that's not that far off. And so again, I thought it would have been a great part of the Dark Universe. Who knows? Maybe Tom Cruise's The Mummy didn't kill it, but Wolfman certainly did not help it.
No, it did not. I've heard good things about Frankenstein, so maybe that can get the train back on the tracks. And
because I was so ready when Dracula Untold came out. I was like, oh God, especially that scene at the very end. I'm like, this is what we need. And then we got some other stuff.
Great comic book work being done right now through Image, I think, or Skybound are doing, that's the publisher, but they're doing takes on these classic monsters. The Invisible Man one is fantastic.
Yeah.
They've done The Mummy. They're doing them all,
That's great.
I highly recommend folks checking those out as well if you like those new takes.
I'll call my close personal friend Chris Ryall and ask him about it.
Yeah. He put it on to him. Yeah.
Well, I think this is, you're bringing up comic books. I think this is a great place for us to stop because one of the main reasons we ever met was because of your comic book.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, please introduce us into the world of your scary, scary stuff.
Okay. So I I've always loved comic books. My whole life. It was growing up where I grew up at in North Florida. We were definitely on the lower socioeconomic side of things in the 70s and 80s. I was born in 72, so I kind of grew up during that period. And we couldn't go to the movies that often at the theater. That was a rare treat. And at home video didn't really come out until I was probably like 12 years old, where we could actually afford to do that,
Right.
rent yards and stuff. So comic books are always one of my forms of escapism, and entertainment. And I really give them a lot of credit with helping shape an imagination. So I've always loved comics, and I've always loved telling stories. I feel like if I would have grown up in a different place and a different time, I would have pursued this a lot earlier than I did. That was all looked at, artistic pursuits like that were viewed kind of frivolously. Where I grew up at, it was get you a job at the state, get something stable. So at a high
Right.
school, went into the Coast Guard. I did 5 years active duty, or 4.5 years active duty, and there came out and went right into EMT school, and then have been a paramedic ever since. So, but I've always felt this itch, or whatever you might want to call it, where I need to do something creative. I have to be doing something that's creative,
Right.
or I feel like I'm going to go crazy. And in like early 2000, late 90s, early 2000s, I really decided I was going to commit and try to just shift my career. And I was like, I'm going to go to film school. So I applied to film school at Florida State University, and I didn't get in because foreign language stuff. The high school I went to, we didn't have to have foreign language, but you had to have it to get in this university. I wasn't able to take it at the community college level because it required, most classes are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, but the Spanish class was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it just made it impossible for me to work and do that. So I didn't get in, but I only really wanted to go for screenwriting. That was the thing that interested me the most. Well, the cool thing about screenwriting is there's a lot of material out there, and if you really want to learn how to do it, you can kind of learn how to do it on your own.
Yeah.
So I read a ton of books, learned a lot about writing in that style, wrote some screenplays, and then, after getting a couple under my belt, I realized that there's absolutely no chance in hell that these will ever go anywhere. Um, so I actually took acting classes to learn how to write better dialogue, because one of the books I read said if you want to write better dialogue, you need to know how to deliver dialogue as an actor. It makes your writing better. So I took some acting classes. That went well. I got some really positive feedback, and that was in Florida. I did some theater shows over there, some plays, loved it, and really kind of fell in love with that whole side of the creative process. And then Hurricane Katrina happened. My wife is from New Orleans here. So after Katrina, we decided we're moving back to New Orleans. So we get back over here, and I promise this story's going somewhere. So we get back over here in like '06, and that was right in the middle of my peak level acting. And I was told my wife, I was like, I really don't want to give up my acting. I really enjoy doing that. And so she was like, you should try to find an agent and see if you could do it at some professional level. And I was like, I don't know about all that. So, anyways, I found there was an agent here locally. At the time, part of New Orleans is coming back. The film industry really started kind of doing a lot of stuff over here.
Right.
And there's a couple of agents at that time. So I went and auditioned for one guy, and he submitted me for a Robert De Niro movie, which I was like, what the, didn't get it, luckily, but I did a good enough job where he agreed to sign me. So
Oh,
again, a couple of years of me doing just, nothing great, it was fun, but nothing revolutionary. And started getting busier on the ambulance. And then I had to kind of make a decision where, I had a wife and two kids, young kids. I could pursue the acting thing, but that would mean to really have a chance at doing it, because I was starting to get these casting directors saying, "Hey, we want to see this guy for this part to audition," but usually it's a very short notice thing. Like they might
yeah.
tell you a day or two beforehand, "Hey, you need to go to Baton Rouge on Wednesday," or whatever, and you're like, "Man, I got to work," So it makes it hard to do both things. So
Sure.
I had a decision where, okay, I can either, if I'm going to focus on the acting thing, we're going to be struggling. I'm going to have to be a waiter or something like that, because it's not consistent enough work to generate, enough money to pay the bills at regular. So I made
Yeah.
the calls, like I got to do the responsible thing. So I kind of pumped the brakes on the acting and focused on the paramedic side. Well, then this hole inside of me started to grow back because I wasn't doing anything creative. I said maybe I could go back and write some more screenplays, but there's not going to ever go anywhere. So I was like, you know what? I love comics. I'm going to write comic scripts.
Okay.
So in like 2008, I wrote a little zombie story. A buddy of mine that I was partners with on the ambulances, we both decided to kick in the money. We hired the artist. We made it. It was a little funny zombie book called Hungry for Stink that sold tens and tens of copies worldwide. You know, and but that showed me a lot. It was self-published. It taught me a lot of how that whole thing works.
Uh-huh.
And I spent a few years from there, not writing still, but not really doing anything because comics are expensive to make. Unfortunately, I
Yeah.
can't draw, so I have to pay artists to do it. So a few years go by, I'm steadily writing, and I decide to make this shift into writing in something that's more, I have more control over, that I'm not relying on anyone else. So I decided to write a book, a prose book. So I wrote this memoir about what it's like to be a paramedic in here in New Orleans. And that got me a book publishing contract with this publisher, and it came out. People really liked it. That it sold better. Obviously, not enough for me to, not have to do EMS or paramedic work anymore. But I enjoyed it. And then part of that contract helped. I had to give them my second, whatever the second thing I did. They got first crack at it. So I
Okay.
spent all this time, wrote a second book that was a whole different type of a thing that they didn't really want to mess with. It was like a guide for parents on what to do if your kids get sick or hurt. And I
Oh,
think that
okay.
felt like it might have been a liability thing. So they passed on that, but it freed me from my contract. So then I was done with that, and I was like, okay, now all of this come around. I said, it's time to start doing comics again. Um, I had a good friend of mine who I had made playing video games online. He lives up in Arkansas. I never met him before, but we became really good friends through gaming. And I happened to mention to him in passing one day, I was like, man, I got these really cool stories I want to do. I want to turn them into comics, but I can't afford to do it. And he was like, hey, I might be interested, because he has a really solid job with a big box retailer that'll remain nameless. He makes good money. He's not married and doesn't have children. So he decided to back it as like kind of like a producer. And
Okay.
we set out, and I wrote this series. The first ones that we did were called Endangered. It was supposed to be an 8-issue series that we did the first book, pitched it to a small publisher called Blood Moon Comics. They liked it. They picked it up and agreed to publish it. And so we launched on that, and it started coming out. And then there was all sorts of problems with the distribution where it just got messed up. Wasn't handled properly. And
On
so,
purpose.
yeah,
The big guys were doing that on purpose.
maybe. I think it was a lot of incompetence with Diamond, who was a distributor who's now since out of business because
Yeah.
of type of stupidity. And then the publisher really wasn't the greatest at this, but it just was kind of fumbled on multiple levels. And it cost about, I think it was about $6,500 for the art on that book. And it came out, but people loved it. It
Yeah.
came out. The first issue did, man, it did, I think it was about 8,000 copies were sold,
Wow.
which was crazy for a no-name creative team at a really no-name publishing to get those types of sales numbers. Now, granted, this was in the height of what they called the comic boom, this right after COVID, and everyone had this disposable income. The comic market went crazy.
Right.
People were buying anything because they thought it might be worth a bunch of money. So the first issue sold well, but then again, the fumbling started to happen. We did the second issue, and by the time the first issue made it to stores, the Diamond in them had screwed it up. So the cutoff date to order issue 2 had already passed. So people got issue 1. The customers bought it. They liked it. It was reviewed really well. But then people were like, let me get number 2. And they're like, oh, number 2, you can't order number 2. It's the order cutoff has already passed. But we can get you number 3.
Who wants that?
It just got screwed up. So after around probably $25,000 on the first 4 issues, I wrote issue 4 so that it would, it was supposed to be 8, but I said, it's a solid stopping point. It's not the end of the story, but it's enough right now that if we never get to finish it, this is somewhat self-contained in these 4.
Okay.
So we got to the 4 issues, and at the same time, the comic boom is fading down. The sales numbers on all books are starting to decrease. And I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something that's much easier to put out as opposed to a series like that. I'm going to do what they call one shots, which are
Yeah.
one done stories. And I'm like, I love horror. I've got a bunch of horror stories. So I said, I'm going to do these. I'll do them as one shots. So we did this first one called Signal 29. It's a zombie story that I loved.
Love it.
That one was, because I wrote that book, the paramedic book that I wrote was called Hard Roll: A Paramedic's Perspective of Life and Death in New Orleans. And a lot of people bought that and liked it. And then, naturally, when you have a book that people enjoy, they come back and say, when are you going to do the next one? When are you going to do the next one? I'm like, well,
Right.
I'm doing comics now. But I was still hearing from those people. So I said, I'm going to do a comic that could technically be an alternate universe bonus chapter from that book.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
two paramedics. It's me and my partner, and we go to this. You get called to pronounce this dead body, but in the story is like, well, what if that dead body wakes up? So that was
Right.
the premise of that Signal 29 comic, and I love that one. So we did that one, and then we did a second one, which was one of those earlier screenplays I had written way back. I wrote this full werewolf screenplay, this feature-length screenplay called Loup Garou, about the Louisiana cryptid, legendary werewolf of the swamps, the Rougarou. Some people call it Loup Garou, some people call it Rougarou. So I went with Loup Garou, and I had this, 95-page screenplay that I knew was never going to go anywhere. I said, but I can take this opening scene of that screenplay with a few adjustments, and I can turn this
Right.
into a comic book. So we did that one, and this was one of the variant covers of that. You can kind of see the werewolf there. But so that one came out, did well, really liked it a lot. And then we did a third one called The Dirt Witch, which I think you picked that one up. That was probably the one that was out when we first started talking. That one I liked because I wanted to do my own creature. The first one was a zombie, this one was a werewolf, both things that I love in film, but I'm like, I want to add my own contribution to the lexicon of horror creatures. So we created this. We talked about Norwegian earlier. I come up with this idea about this Norwegian death metal band that accidentally summons this demon.
Right.
And in the comic, the band is called the Dirt Witch. Not people think it's the monster's name, but
Yeah. Yeah.
the monster doesn't really have a name. But they summon this child-eating demonic entity and seal it into this record. And then it kills all of them, and then the record makes its way onto the dark web, and this kid buys it, brings it here, plays it, and then things go crazy from there. But yeah, so that was kind of the comic journey. We're in the process, and it'll be happening soon, where I'm going to take all three of those stories seemingly had nothing to do with one another,
Okay.
but the whole time I knew I wanted to include them as individual chapters in an anthology and create an overarching narrative that tied them all together. So
Oh, cool.
that we've done that. I actually created this extra story that ties everything kind of together, and we're going to be putting that out probably relatively soon, through maybe most likely through a crowdfunding platform, because Blood Moon Comics, the publisher that signed us, they went out of business, and it's kind of hard to get it out there and pitch to these publishers. It's a
Yeah.
lot. I thought screenplays easier than screenplays, but not much easier. There's a lot of locked doors that unfortunately at this point I don't possess the keys to open. So, but the other side of that is you don't really need it. It helps, but you can do your own stories yourself.
Yeah. The crowdfunding, I mean, Kickstarter, all those different places, they've opened up the world to a lot of people.
Yeah, we experimented some with it because I told Blood Moon, because so many projects had gotten fumbled. They blamed Diamond and whoever was at fault. I was like, I'm not going to let it happen again. So my contract with Blood Moon, I said, you guys can have the A cover, the main cover of each of these books, and distribute them to comic shops around the country. Because I like the idea of having my stuff available.
Sure.
Somebody watches this and they're in Spokane, Washington, or whatever, and they want to go to their comic book store. Maybe one of my books would be on the shelf there or something. Um, but I told Blood Moon, I was like, you're not going to handle the variant covers. I'm going to do the variant covers for these.
Okay.
So we started it with Loup Garou, and we did the variant cover campaign on Kickstarter. And then we did the variant cover campaign for the Dirt Witch on Kickstarter as well. And both of those were funded and succeeded. They didn't, blow the doors off of anything, but it mainly taught me how to do Kickstarter. So
Yeah.
it is a good platform. a bit oversaturated, but there's good stuff there. People wanted to. You can always tell people, if you're not familiar with Kickstarter, it's basically like Shark Tank, except you have the opportunity to be the shark. You get to get in on something at the ground floor and help fund it. If it reaches its funding goal, you're part of the origin team, and if it doesn't, it's fine.
Yeah, you get your money back. So, or it never takes your money. So
it never charged in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So that's the 8-mile answer to your 6-inch question about how did I wind up getting into comic books. But that was where it happened and where it's kind of sitting at currently.
Well, I love the fact, and I've read all 3 of those. Plus, so one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, because I love how it is set in New Orleans and the ways there. So Rooster, is that store? Is he working in a Peaches, or does he just have Peaches on his shirt?
I actually reached out to the lady that owns Peaches Records on Magazine Street and told her I wanted to include. I was like, listen, this kid's going to work in a local record shop, so I would love for it to be Peaches Records. But if not, it's going to be Lemon's Records. I told her, and she was like, "No, it's cool." And
that's awesome.
We were supposed to do something together with the release, and I think it was my fault probably that I didn't really follow up with them. But they're busy and stuff over there. They always got something going on, and I love that store. It's a great store for anybody. If you ever come to New Orleans, you want to go to like an OG cool record store. It's like a micro version of like Amoeba Records in Los Angeles. It's a cool old school record store.
Really is.
Gave us permission to put him in there, so no, Rooster works at Peaches on Magazine Street.
That's awesome. That is awesome, man. I love it.
He's a key part of the anthology news storyline. Together that'll be in this. The next one's called Menagerie of the Macabre. You can flash the cover for that, I'm sure, on here. But Rooster's a character in that. I love him, so we want to bring him back.
He's great. So, real quick, where is everybody going to be able to find your previously published works?
That's a good question. I honestly, some of those you could find. Oh man, I don't have the actual 100% answer to that. Few bins at comic shops. You can hit up your local comic store. They might possibly be able to order Diamond. So the way Diamond worked, and they're still technically around, they would overprint a print run in case there were damages or something like that, and they would store them in a warehouse. After a certain point, I want to say the publisher could buy them back, but sometimes they still have them. So you can ask the comic shop locally, hey, can you order me, a copy of Signal 29? They might say no, or they might say yeah. I think they're probably all for sale on eBay, typical places that you find like old back issue comics. Some comic shops, unfortunately the A cover order numbers got lower and lower and lower. I think by the time the Dirt Witch came out, I think we maybe did, it was down to like 500-600 copies ordered nationwide, which is sad, honestly, because I love that story, and every person reviewed it loved it. I didn't get a send. I sent it out. I send my stuff out because I want honest coverage on it whenever I put it out. When I send it out there, I don't send it to someone I know who's going to be like, oh, this is great, and they not like it. I send it to every reviewer I can and ask them, hey, you're not going to hurt my feelings, man. Listen, I know I'm at this point in time, I've written enough where I'm pretty confident I know when I write something that's good and when it's not, and I have enough people around me that usually these stories have to pass through as filters who are going to catch it and say like, dude, this is stupid. You need to redo this.
Yeah.
We're at that point of like honesty. So
and you need that.
Yeah. But I like that story a lot. And it really kind of bums me out that it didn't reach as big of an audience as it did. And I'm hoping that maybe with this trade paperback, you never know how these types of things work. Down the line, we can maybe do something else with it or something like that. But so as far as finding them, man, I honestly don't know. Blood Moon used to keep a back stock, but they're out of business now, and I think they got rid of all their back inventory. So I really don't know. They're out there for sure. You can find them.
And you do at cons, so you have some of them with you at cons?
Sometimes, yeah. We're going to we'll probably have to now that Blood Moon's out of business. I mean, all of these come back to me, so I own all the rights to them all. I mean, they didn't have any IP, intellectual property claims. To all. They just handled the distribution, so I can print them again at will. I typically, if I'm doing a reprint, I have a very strong appreciation for people who took a chance and paid money for my stuff when it came out. So, in my opinion, as a collectible, even though right now none of them are worth a whole lot they haven't shot up in value through the roof or anything like that. But I don't want to just keep reprinting a book that someone bought off the shelf. So I'll typically do a different cover or some sort of annotation or some sort of thing that differentiates it from the other ones. But yeah, well, I still do cons. I will probably be getting some more printed, honestly, but they will be, the story will be the same. But I like to make sure that the people who bought the original one have the original one, without
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah. The collector side of it, because I'm a collector as well. I could show you the mess of this office that I'm in. There are comic books everywhere in here. So
there's a reason yours is blurred and mine has a different picture. Trust me, I'm with you.
I have crap all over the place here, and it's almost comic books.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I respect the collectors and I appreciate them. I'm actually in the process right now of taking a crack at writing again one of those old screenplays that this is my favorite story I've ever written that I've been sitting on and guarding heavily because I'm like, I'm not going to put this out and it not do well because of poor management handling, Right. So I love this story. So I'm actually going to taking a crack at doing that as my first attempt at like a long form fiction novel. So, it'll take a while to get it out, but I'm having fun writing it. So it's going well.
That's what's important, right?
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, we're going to have all of the links to your TikTok and to all those other things here at the end. And of course the screen, to go around. But I think if you're finished,
yes, sir.
That, the Hungarians are all anxiously crowded around the one computer monitor that they have in their village because we have come to the point of the show where we're going to talk about, you ready? Our penultimate choices.
I use that word a lot, and most people.
You?
Yeah, I work where I work at now. We work 7 days in a row, 7 days on, 12-hour shifts, and that 6th day I always come in there and I'm like, it's the penultimate day. And everybody's like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, oh, you don't know what that means. So yeah, the penultimate. It's a word I love.
Yeah. There's a thing on Supernatural that you'll hear when you watch this video. It's Sam going, nobody says penultimate.
And Sam, I say it all the damn time.
There you go.
Love her. Penultimate time.
All right, give it to me. What's your number 2?
All right, my number 2 kind of ties into going back to where you left off on your last one as far as The Invisible Man, with things being a little too could be happening in the near future and makes you kind of nervous. One of my all-time favorites, and I do feel this is a thriller. It is a thriller. It is definitely science fiction. I consider it a horror movie. I get some pushback on this at times, but it is the original OG James Cameron's film, The Terminator.
Okay.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's one of the best slasher movies of all time. People look at me and you think that's exactly what it is. But with the rise of crap ass AI these days and all of that, and I've listened to some interviews with people who are like, the pace this is going, it's going to reach a level here really soon where it's either going to revolutionize the human experiment or it's going to end it, And this movie, to me, so backstory. I say I got lucky. My parents got divorced. I wasn't lucky. My parents got divorced, but
sorry, Mom.
I was 10 years old. So this would have been in 1982. And I have a vivid memory of my dad, who I love dearly. He's since passed away, but he was an awesome parent, but they were young when they had us. So they didn't really know like what was cool to do or not, Mm-hmm. So he would take me and my brother when he'd have custody of us on the weekend. We would have school on Monday morning. He would take us to a 9 o'clock R-rated movie, 9 at night in Tallahassee. So we'd be getting home at like 1 a.m, having to wake up at like 5:30 a.m. So it was terrible. But one of the movies he took me to see as a young kid, and I saw it in the theater, was Terminator.
Wow.
I remember being scared watching it, but loving
Well,
it.
yeah.
And I've watched it. That's one again that I watch a lot, and it still holds up. It is a very thrilling film where you have this unstoppable force, basically, just on a beeline path to handle his business. And
Yeah.
I love that movie, man. It's a great film to me. I think
It
that
is. And you're right. I never would have put it into a thriller. I thought you were fixing to say Alien.
that one is definitely horror to me. I think Terminator dances a little more in the different genres. Alien to me is science fiction horror for
Yeah.
sure. It's very thrilling, as most good horror films are, but Terminator I think is a triple crowner. It's
Yeah.
sci-fi, horror, thriller, and I love it, man. It's just a movie that yeah, even as opposed to the second one, went a lot heavier into the action part of it. Terminator 2.
Mhm.
Terminator 1 is a straight up thrilling stalker. Like you
Yeah.
talked about the Invisible Man. When you were talking about the Invisible Man, a lot of the things you were saying, I was thinking, yeah, this kind of checks the boxes of the Terminator. Oh, it's this stalker character who's
Yep.
you can't stop him, and he's lurking around the corner. And especially at the very beginning there, where Sarah really doesn't know what she's dealing with.
Yeah.
But that scene where he's pulling names out of a phone book and goes
Oh,
goes to the wrong house first. You so kind of, she's like, yes, and he just, Moses like, bro,
just to
I
be sure.
yeah, I love that film, dude. I mean, you could, I blurred it out, but I've got it.
I saw it.
Yeah,
I
so,
saw it earlier.
yeah, that was signed by Michael Bean and Sarah Connor herself.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I love that movie a lot. So that one had to go in my top 5 list. I had to shoot
Oh,
it in there.
yes.
Yeah, there's another one. There's another
So
King George.
rich. So
Forget
rich.
dollar bills now, y'all. But that one had to go into my 5 just because I love this movie so much. Even if I had to shoehorn it in there, I had to get it. I was
Yeah.
like, that's a thrilling film that
That's
definitely fits.
perfect. I love it. I
What
love
you
it.
numero dos?
So my penultimate choice is probably one of the greatest thrillers of all time. Um, you talk about a stalker, an invisible stalker. This movie was not originally written to have an invisible stalker, but because of salt water getting
Oh,
into Bruce's mechanism, Jaws from
ding, 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 ding,
1975.
ding, ding.
Yep. Jaws is okay. So we all know the story. It all takes place in a small beach town called Amity Island. A shark kills a swimmer, or maybe was it a boat? I don't know. And then local police chief Martin Brody, wants to close the beaches, but the mayor refuses. They bring in a
July
marine
weekend.
biologist, huh?
It's 4th of July weekend.
4th of July week, come on! And a grizzly shark hunter to track down and kill the predator. Now, why is this a great movie? So many ways. One of the first things we're going to talk about is John Williams' iconic score. We talked earlier about the Birds that purposely didn't use it. This movie purposely used it in such a way that it set the pace for all of the horror movies and all action, all thriller movies afterwards. There's a story which some people say is an urban legend, but supposedly Spielberg sat down with John Williams, who had done the score, and he says, "Okay, well, what do you got for me?" And he starts that dun dun dun, dun, the sound that we all know. And after he finished it, Spielberg went, "No, really, what do you have for me? That's crap. What are you gonna do?" So they played it to the audience. I played like a scene to an audience and played it both ways. And almost 100% of the people said, "Oh, it's got to have that music in it," you know, and it's just this. So, but you also have to talk about the masterful suspense, which in this movie itself, again, it has so many stories in it, um, was not meant to be that way. It was meant to be, a killer shark that you see on the screen, but because of the works got messed up, they had to change the way it works. So now we are embodied into the shark, into the killing machine, and so it changed the way that we felt about the killers because now we were seeing it through their eyes. Um, it's relatable. I mean, especially you from in Florida. You go into the beach. There's little critters that get by you all the time. I mean, jellyfish and little fish and all kind of stuff. And so we've all heard and seen shark attacks. So we can definitely understand that fear. It's character driven storytelling as well because you care about these. I mean, a sheriff of a beach town on an island who doesn't swim. I
Yeah.
mean, what masterful storytelling you've got there. And the movie's just perfectly paced. I mean, I could sit here and it's a dozen different places that this movie was done. I think probably one of the best pacing is when the three of them are in the boat in the orca out and they're swapping stories about their scars, and then Quint tells the story of the USS Indianapolis, and it's just it grinds you to think, oh, all this stuff going on, and with what's going on outside the cabin for them. It is essentially the movie that invented the summer blockbuster.
Yeah.
I mean, after that, people really wanted to start putting their things out during the summer so they could try to recapture that movie. But you can't talk about thrillers without talking about Jaws, my penultimate choice.
100%. I was actually having a conversation with my wife the other day. She doesn't consider Jaws a horror film. I do. I absolutely do.
Yeah.
I don't. I think that movie. I don't think there's another film ever made that had more of a lasting societal worldwide impact than that movie. Because once you see that film,
Yeah.
anytime you're in water that you can't see the bottom of, I bet you 90% of people hear that music in their head.
Yeah.
I, yeah, I used to be afraid after watching that as a kid. I was afraid to take a bath with the lights out. I was afraid sharks would come out of the tub. But and then you talk about that scene with Quint where he's telling the story of the Indianapolis. That's just that scene of dialogue when there's nothing happening. He's just talking is so well done. It's one of the most tense, thrilling scenes of the whole movie, and it's
Yeah.
just telling a story.
Yeah.
A fun, cool part of this that always ties this in because I love Jaws. That's a absolutely fantastic choice. When I was in the Coast Guard, we were one of the ships I was on was up in Sandy Hook, New Jersey, so right below New York City. So we used to do these. We did a lot of fisheries boardings. We would board these fishing vessels to make sure they didn't have illegal catches and things on them. One of the boats we went on, we get on there and there's all these shark jaws all over the place. I was like, what the hell? And one of the guys I was with said, "Oh, this is the guy that Quint from Jaws was based on." So I met
Really?
the real guy, yeah, that he based Quint on. Is this shark hunter up off of Long Island? It was pretty cool.
Wow.
I didn't know it until after we finished the boarding. They said, that was the guy that Quint was based off of from Jaws because I remember the guy had a necklace with a big ass shark tooth on it, and he had bleached shark jaws hanging on the sides of the boat. I was like, what in the hell? It was awesome. So yeah,
That's awesome.
that's the closest I've gotten to any direct Jaws connections. But
Yeah.
that's a fantastic choice because I love that movie. I agree with you. I don't know where it ranks, where like AFI or those things rank it as far as like, greatest of all times, but it's high up there. I mean, again, I don't think there's ever been a film that had more pop culture mass impact on, again, that movie. You watch it anytime you go to the beach, at some point, especially when you're in that water, you're thinking of Jaws.
That's right.
And when you do the deep dives and you go into the makings of it and just how it was a mess, and
Yeah.
the whole thing was shot basically right off the beach. They just the
Right.
way they filmed it, it looks like they were out in the middle of the ocean. I mean, there's so much awesomeness around that movie besides just the film itself, which is great. Yeah, great choice.
Yeah.
Love Jaws.
Thank you. We have a good friend of the show, uh, George Wolf, who's with part of Fright Club with Hope Madden. Um, George was actually at Martha's Vineyard when they were filming,
Oh,
so he has stories about it being up close and seeing some of that stuff. And I'm like, oh man, that's just as a kid, of course, you're just seeing a movie made, and you're like, ooh. But
yeah.
then now as an adult, you're like, you were there, man. You were there.
That Dude,
Wow.
that's great. That's such an awesome movie. I mean, I watch it again. That's one that I probably watch annually. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it feels like it's part of like the summer tradition. The summer's
Yeah.
coming, you got pause,
Yeah.
and you just watch it to this day, and it all works still perfectly.
Yeah.
The period doesn't impact it at all.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
It's
I just went to Florida over the summer, and I watched all four of them
yeah,
while I was there. And it's of course it gets progressively,
yeah.
but for the one and two, man, they're just like bam,
Dude,
bam,
when he ate a helicopter, I was like, what? Yeah,
and
yeah,
and then when you hear the story about the helicopter, about how it was not supposed to flip over,
right.
and all of this stuff, it's like sometimes things just happen. And I mean, thank God he was okay, but it's like would be Star Wars.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a worldwide phenomenon that people, almost instantly recognize.
yeah.
But with Jaws, you have that extra fear that's
Yeah.
added to it. So, yeah. Well, thank you. I'm glad you like that one. But now we are ready to hear what is your absolute favorite thriller.
All right. This goes. You said fear. I'll tell you the backstory on this one. This is a movie that I watched in the theater with my wife, and I remember leaving the theater being like, "Wow!" Dude, like we were having like conversation, like if this ever happened to us, this is what you would do. This, that, and the other. So
Yeah.
my number one thriller of all time, probably my most favorite one, it would be The Strangers. Um,
Wow.
Tyler and Scott Speedman.
Yes.
That movie, another one that's in my TO to the P 20 of all time.
Ah,
It's a definitely a very thrilling movie. It's a very scary movie. I see a
yeah.
lot of when people say, uh, "Tell me a really scary movie to watch." Most of the time, when I'm monitoring comments on those types of threads, inevitably the strangers will come up because it is a film that, especially if you've never seen it, it's very tense and it's very tense, thrilling, kind of synonymous terms, but um, I love it. It's a great
Yeah.
film. I don't watch it as frequently as the others because it is a bit bleak,
Yeah.
alert, but it is a master class to me on using a little to do a lot as far
Right.
as build tension and that's always to me like especially when it comes to horror or thrillers that's the most effective to me is it's not jump scares it's creating an investment in making characters that the viewer is going to be invested in and then the typical Joseph Campbell rules of you put them in circumstances that bad things happen to them and you just use all of that stuff to build tension showing of the unknown like when she's in that house and you see that dude with that mask in the shadows of the room behind her and you're like whoa that
Yeah.
all originally come from I don't remember the name of the movie but it was a 70s horror film and it's classic because the place we got finally traced the call. It's coming from inside the house. I don't remember what that original film was that used that gimmick, but I was watching as
Someone is watching you, I think it's
someone.
called.
I think it is it, but that was scary, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like someone could be there, kind of like it's like with the Invisible Man. It's a very similar premise where these people are in this home and they can do to you whatever they want to at any time, and they're just toying with you, almost like a predatory manner. It's
Yeah.
scary and it's thrilling and it's very tense. So, The Strangers gets my vote.
That's an excellent choice. That was not even anywhere on my radar.
Yeah,
Um, that's the great thing about this show is I would have never, like I said, even considered that one because it is a good movie.
yeah, it's all perspective, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like the ones you're naming are equally as good as mine, but I wasn't
Yeah.
looking at thriller through that lens. That's the
Yeah.
like you said, that's the cool thing about talking about stuff like this
Yeah.
is
I agree. I
perspectives.
I definitely agree. Um, Well, for my number one,
Here,
there are many, many ways to go. Okay. Um, I really tried to find something that would straddle the lines between thriller and horror and all of this stuff. But before I tell you what it is, um, if I had to choose a horror thriller, something that really invested me and kept me on through the entire movie, I think I'm gonna have to choose Wreck, the
oh yeah,
Spanish
the original, yeah,
zombie movie.
yeah,
Yeah, because
great
and
one.
I'll tell this story that I had one of those little 6-inch screen DVD players, and the movie wasn't out here in the US, but I had a friend of a friend, and I ended up getting a copy of it. And so I sat in bed, complete darkness, with my headphones on, and I watched that movie, and it thrilled me, it chilled me, it did all of the things right.
Yeah, it's a
I
good one.
just I think it's more of a horror thriller
Yeah,
than a thriller that is horrible.
well, it's got
So
the, that kind of feels like that automatically, is the moves it across the line heavily.
yeah, yeah. So my absolute favorite though is going to be the movie that we've already talked about, but I still have many things to say. 1991's The Silence of the Lambs. That's a match. Um, okay, so we've already talked about it, but here's the things that I see as to what makes it my favorite thriller. The whole cat and mouse dynamic, okay? Not only is it Clarice and Hannibal Lecter, but then at the end it's actually a cat and mouse with Buffalo Bill
yeah,
and Clarice. And you said it earlier, one of the best things is you've got the FBI SWAT team and they're all geared up and they're all doing this, and they get to the door and they open the door and you find out they are not at the same house that she's out. And it's like, holy hell.
yeah,
What is this? And I not use this disparagingly. What is this little girl going to do now that she's in the den of the lion?
yeah,
Okay. Jonathan Demme has a way of painting an atmosphere of dread throughout this entire movie. Um, the power plays in this movie are amazing. Again, not just the power plays between Lecter and Clarice through the glass and on the phone, but I will never forget one of the best scenes in that entire movie is when they're looking over the body of the floater at the very beginning,
yeah.
and here she is, a small diminutive person around a group of guys. I think she's in an elevator at first when she goes, down there, and all these guys are like standing over her. And then you get to the end of the movie and you find out she's the one that captured him. She's the one that took him down. And so it didn't matter that all these other guys were, it didn't matter that when she was at the mortuary, they didn't treat her with any respect. She knew the job and she did the job.
Yeah.
Um, Powerhouse performances by so many people. One of the things about this movie is that it's smart, not just scary. You and I both have seen so many movies that actually can be scary, but so many times you're like, oh, don't go in there, stop doing that, or oh, there's a sound, let's go check it out. How about we don't go check it out?
Right.
How about we leave?
Right.
This movie, she doesn't make any of those.
Right.
She makes smart decisions throughout the film. And that's one of the reasons why
Oh,
she wins in the end. Um, and the other thing is the layers that come to this movie. Okay. You're going to watch something and you're going to think that you're tense, that you're scared, that you're thrilled because of one thing, and then you find out the reason for that is completely different.
right.
See, and that's why it's one of the, as far as I know, only 3 films to ever win the big 5 at the Oscars: picture, director, actor, actress, and screenplay. And it's just, oh, yes.
There you go. I mentioned
Rub it in to John from John,
on my discussion
blah, blah, blah. My stuff is
2005.
better than yours.
Yeah, there's the best Oscar winner in Best Picture. Yeah, that's a great point, man, because it's one of the few horror films that's won that
Yeah.
award. So, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
No, you're
off. I mentioned it earlier. I went and grabbed it. So.
yeah. If we weren't so far apart, I would have mentioned it right then.
Yeah,
But I had to wait. I had to wait. But you covered so many things, and the book that you were talking about, um,
Thomas Harris. I said Jonathan.
Thomas Harris. Yeah, I'm trying to learn not to correct people, but the ending to the Red Dragon book to this day is one of the best endings of any novel I've ever read. The way that you change, and now all of a sudden you're a blind girl,
Right,
in a burning house. Oh wow. I
yeah.
mean, I did not see that coming, at the end. And so the Ralph Fiennes version, of course I love the Michael Mann. I saw the Michael Mann, so loved it. But Ralph Fiennes, they did a really, really good job,
They
but
did.
you just can't recreate what happens when you're reading it, because your mind paints that picture and works that movie in your head.
Yeah, agree.
Just, oh, there's sometimes books and physical books will almost always be better than the movie that you actually see. And that's why I love, if there's something coming out of the movie based on a book, um, I love that feeling of, okay, do I read it now or do I watch the movie and then,
Yeah,
what do I do?
same.
So,
Yeah, same.
yeah.
There's another component we didn't really discuss about Silence of the Lambs. This also makes it so fantastic. Is he's got this girl. The stakes are that he has this girl in this well. Put the lotion in the basket, girl, and
The
again,
roomie girl.
another classic example to me, like of what another example of why this movie is so iconic is ever since I saw that film, anytime I hear the Tom Petty song "American Girl,"
Oh,
which was playing, she was playing in the car when he kidnaps her.
yeah.
Every time I hear that song, I love that song. But every time I hear it since '93 or 91, I
Yeah.
think Silence of the Lambs. She
Yeah.
a big fat girl, I think about that.
I know. You're a big girl.
Yeah,
One of the things that the script did, which, if you're not someone messed up like me and maybe you, who used to read about serial killers all the time, you see that he went through and it just pulled these little threads
yeah,
from different people.
yeah.
Ted Bundy, with the cast on his arm.
Ed,
Ed Gein, making all of these things and put them together, into just holy crap. And then when you step back and see those things were based on real events, on
yeah.
real people. Again, it comes back to the most horrific things are done by people to people.
That's
And yeah,
villain. He doesn't. He's not on the, you know, discussed with like Mount Rushmore of horror iconic character Jane Gum or Buffalo Bill, but he's one of the scariest because he's one of the realest. You
right.
talk about the Ed Gein obviously is there, which naturally the other big Ed Gein thing would be Psycho and Leatherface. Texas
Yeah,
Chainsaw.
yeah,
Leatherface is scary because it could be real, but it's still kind of fantastical that it'd be something that off the chain.
yeah.
But this
Off the
dude,
chainsaw.
yeah, off the chainsaw. The guy, Buffalo Bill in this movie is very realistic.
Yeah,
I watch a lot of these on Netflix and stuff. I just watched the one about the daughter of the BTK killer, and
yeah,
he's so realistically portrayed like those guys are. He's just some guy in a crappy house somewhere, who like your neighbor, you don't ever really know what they're up to. And that's that, like you said, that's why it's so scary, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. Wow. Well, man, all I gotta say is thank you. You put it together and you really brought it.
Heck,
I certainly appreciate it.
we hit 40%, dude,
Yeah.
out of top five, two of our
Ah!
pretty good.
I
Got
got another critical. Dude, I'm
to
going to be sending you a bill after this. Okay. I've got PayPal. I've got Zelle, whichever you need.
But yeah, we hit two out of 5 is not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. Not bad at all. And because there's a lot of thrills, but you got to be honest. The two that we really hit on, there's a reason why.
Yes,
Because they do thrill us and they chill us.
100%. Yeah, and again, if those watching and listening to this, if you've not seen any of these films, do yourself a favor. You're welcome, because I actually at the point now where I envy people who haven't seen movies like this. I'm like,
I know.
I that I could watch this for the first time again.
Yeah.
But that's why a lot of these are so good, because no matter how many times you watch them again, even though you know what's going to happen, it's still compelling and it's still great.
Exactly. Just like Frankenhooker.
Yeah,
same thing.
Exact same thing. Like Franken.
Well, I want to thank all of you out there in the podcast universe for tuning in to this episode of Fave 5 from Fans. We hope you enjoyed being thrilled by today's episode. And if this episode resonated with you, here's how you can help us reach more listeners or even watchers now, because, we do the YouTube thing. Share it with somebody you love. And if you're feeling generous, go to one of these places and leave us a thumbs up or even a 5-star review. 4 stars are great, but 5 is so much better. And when you leave a review, they really do help with the analytics and the World Web thing and all of that stuff. And it helps other people learn about the show. And listen, I say this a lot. If you didn't like the show, really, it's okay. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Tell somebody you don't like about the show. Maybe that'll ruin their day. Spread it out there. So you can find us on YouTube and across all of social media. We've got the X, we've got the Instagram, the Facebook, and beyond, all of these places. So come out there, be part of the conversation, and maybe, help be part of that community. Thanks for being a part of the Plastic Microphone Studios family, because we love you. And speaking of which, head on over to X and Instagram now to follow at PM Studio Pod to explore more great content from Average Home Theater Reviews, Red Dog Terrain, The Sequel House, and more. Folks, new episodes come out every Friday.
Or do they?
It's brand new. They're doing this.
I've heard some issues.
Yeah.
This
okay.
Got Friday.
So be sure to subscribe and you follow us so that you can catch all of the episodes like a disease. And remember, folks, it may not be the best. It may not be the most popular. But if it's your favorite, then that's good enough for us. Thanks so much for joining us. Jon, take us out.
Thank you guys for listening to us ramble. Stay weird, and we'll catch you on the next video.
I like videos.